Hi, this is JP Morgan.
And Lars Lindstrom.
And this is Trends from the Trenches for the month of July.
We're going to be talking about a couple of new cameras.
Mine's like a horse.
And mine's beating you.
It is, like 2 to 1.
Yeah.
Hi, this is JP Morgan.
And Lars Lindstrom.
And this is Trends from the Trenches for the month of July.
Welcome.
So we have some interesting things to talk about. There are some interesting things going on.
Yes, actually. Yeah.
Much more than we thought.
Yeah, we got new GoPro camera, new Sony camera, all sorts of new fun stuff.
Yep.
So
the 5Ds have hit the market. They're on the
they're
shelf
on the
now.
shelves.
So we'll do some pictures of those in another segment so we can take a look at the pixel counts. Very quiet, very active place here at Sammy's today. So.
It's great.
But let's start off. I think this is a pretty interesting, the Sony A7r II.
Right, and I thought this, as soon as they announced this, I thought this is a camera for JP.
Why is that?
Couple reasons. Well, it's the perfect hybrid, right?
It is.
Because you're a still photographer. That's what you do. But you love video. I mean, you have a whole YouTube page, and you have video clients, and you're constantly making video. So you want to be able to switch back and forth between the two, right? So something like.
And I want 3 or 4
right,
cameras,
exactly,
you know, and I don't want to have to buy
exactly.
6 cameras.
Which I'll never understand, by the way. That's not true. Coming from the guy that owns 6 cameras.
You will
too.
never. Yeah.
I
only have half as many cameras as you do.
I just don't like rolling them all at the same time. But no, so you've got a 40 megapixel sensor, right?
Which for still photographers, that's a landscape. That's a landscape on a large format. That's a landscape image. That's an incredible image.
It's commercial, right?
It is commercial for if you're making large billboard kinds of applications. Some stuff I just shot for Pilot Freight. They sent me images yesterday. They're going to blow up to 15 feet by 8 feet.
That's huge.
Images.
Yeah.
These are prints.
Oh.
They're going to put in the foyers of their.
So it would be nice and up close.
Yeah, it's not like you're standing across the street and looking at it.
Wow. So yeah, you need it.
Yeah. So a large megapixel camera. So 24 megapixel day is gone.
Interesting.
You have the capability. You have high ISO capabilities with the Sony camera.
Not as much as the A7S.
No. only a pitiful what?
102,400.
102,400. I mean, that's an incredible amount of ISO. I mean, it's like it's so behind.
Which means you'll probably get usable ISOs up until about the 8,000 ISO level. 8 to 10,000.
With 8 to 10,000, you can shoot in most any situation you're going to ever have. You know, I mean, anytime you're combining a natural light in a room with some kind of an LED, I mean, it's going to be way more than you'll ever use for most video applications.
Yeah, you turn on one practical and the whole thing blows out.
Exactly. You know, I rarely with the Mark IIIs do I go beyond 640.
Yeah.
Sometimes 12, but just not very often.
Yeah. So, so back to the A7R Mark II. Right?
Okay.
So you've got this massive 40 megapixel still sensor. It's great for photographers, but then you also have 4K internal recording,
which is the most exciting thing about it. It's the first full frame camera with intro. No, that's not true. The 1DS, Canon 1DS, which was 12,000.
That's not a full frame.
Oh yeah.
It's a 1.3.
No, 1DC. 1DC.
Is it full frame?
Mm-hmm. Full frame camera.
All right.
1DC.
Yeah, go ahead.
The 1DC is a full frame camera, but it was $12,000.
Right.
And didn't have great video capabilities. But so this is probably the second internal recording 4K on a full frame, but the first one that's really affordable. Because it's $3,300. I think $3,300. If you go to Sammy's online, you can find that out. But I think it's around $3,300.
Yeah, $3,200. I think.
Is it? $3,200. There you have it.
Yeah, here's the funny thing. I mean, you're a professional photographer. Mm-hmm. You're a professional in the world, but you didn't buy a 1DC.
Nope.
Why not?
Because it's so expensive. I mean, you got a $12,000 camera. And like I said, I've got to have at least 2 of them. I can't do a 2-camera interview unless I set 2 cameras up. So I'm going to spend $24,000 for a still camera that's trying to be a video camera, and it doesn't do video that great.
That's worth $5,000 2 years later.
Yeah, it's worth $5,000 2 years later. With the Ursa Mini, you know, you've already stepped into a camera. I don't have anything on here that says the dynamic range. I'd love to know that. Is it 12? Is it 14? Is it 15?
My guess is that it's about the same as the because it does have the Cinelog available as well.
Okay.
Right, so it's probably going to be about 12 12 stops dynamic range, which isn't
about the same as the Mark IIIs. A little better than Mark IIIs.
Terrible. It's better than Mark III.
Not much though. Mark IIIs are 11 something.
Are they? If you shoot the cinema mode, that's not bad. Not bad.
Not bad.
So, but I think it's going to be a great camera.
Yep. Some other things it has. It has Wi-Fi and NFC connectivity.
What's that? NFC?
Which I didn't understand because I am an iPhone. I've never used it. But I guess Android users touch
near field connectivity, or communication,
which sounds cool.
Sounds really cool. Just
iPhone, get on the bus.
I'm gonna near field connect you and this old.
I feel connected now.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my mail.
That's called email.
Yeah. Got it.
Got it, guys. Connectivity. Okay, so what else? I mean, the five-axis sensor.
Yeah.
The stabilizer. That's absolutely. I mean, everyone that's used that says it's incredible because you get a very stable image. You can handhold at a little faster speeds. I mean, it's really a great. This is a great camera.
Yeah.
This is almost the camera that I got the email on April Fool's Day, and I started to go, oh! And at the bottom, April Fool's. No, that is so mean.
It is that camera.
It is
that camera.
It is.
But the only thing is, it doesn't say Canon on the top. It says Sony. That's the only difference.
That's a problem.
It is a problem.
Don't those guys just make like CD players and things?
I think so. Walkmans, right? 3.5 times faster processing for images. So that's probably this beefy processor. That's probably how you're going to get these 4K internal files.
So here's the question. The question that our listener talk about the new A7R II, and also tell me how or why you would choose that over the Ursa Mini.
Okay, you go first.
Well, for me, it's just because of the still capability.
Hybrid.
I mean, it's a compromise for video, but a plus for still. So it fills in the gap that the A7S doesn't fill, and that is the A7S is a great video camera, but is not a great still camera.
It's just not.
This one's a great hybrid to do both. Is the Ursa Mini a better video camera? Absolutely.
15 stops, dynamic range.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
4.6K raw files at a 4:1 compression ratio. So for me, I'm looking at the Ursa Mini going, that's it. That's, I want this
Pretty
camera.
hard to resist.
So I would probably get the Ursa Mini before I'd get the A7R Mark II, but for someone like JP, hands down, this is the camera.
But in the end, I'm going to buy 2 Ursa Minis as my interview cameras.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And then
I'll
probably buy a Sony as my still camera. Actually, I may buy one of the ones. I'm moving to the dark side.
He's moving. He's moving. I'm happy for you.
Well, all the reasons in video, you just onboard sound, and I mean all the reasons that make it just worthwhile.
Yeah,
so.
Those sensors, and I did see some of the first test footage just came out from the Ursa Mini, and there's a shot and it's all pretty. Most of it's like in a field,
exactly,
sun flares, and you're like, you can't go wrong with that, even on a 5D, or whatever. But it's like, but there is a shot though in that video where a couple guys are at a coffee shop. And there's no lights on them.
I saw that.
And they're looking at each other, and it's like a back shot, and you've got this strong light coming from outside, and no fill light, but the sensor's holding it.
The sensor's holding that whole range, which is really sweet.
It looked really beautiful, sweet. Beautiful.
Yep.
So I was very excited about that.
All right, so we got to go on. We can't sit here and. How about GoPro's new little tiny camera?
The Cube.
The Cube.
The GoPro Cube.
Macintosh tried this. They made a Cube.
It didn't do
you know how long that lasted?
Yeah.
Well, that's my prediction about this camera. It's like a small version. It's still $400.
That's what gets me. Like I'm like, okay, like half the size. That's cool. Like there's got to be some application here, but it's a severe reduction in pixel quality.
Yeah.
And slow motion quality. You just don't get it. And it's $400.
So you have to really love that size, and I don't know what the application is going to be. I mean, what's the application going to be?
400. That's like a couple hundred more than it should have been. No, I think the application is just extreme sports, obviously, still, but where you need like if aerodynamics is an issue, or if weight becomes an issue on tiny little things,
Well, it has a built-in waterproof case. It's in the case, so it is very small.
Very small.
Very small, and that's really the selling point. You can strap this thing into really a helmet, really tiny places.
Yeah. So even tinier. It's like, that's what people say about the GoPro though. Oh, it's great because you can put it in tiny places. But now you can put it in even tinier places.
And for $200 less.
Yeah.
So there you are, the new GoPro. It'll be interesting to see how that does.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got here today?
Sigma announced a new lens.
They did?
Which is interesting. It's a fast zoom lens. So it is a 24 to 35 full frame 2.0 lens.
Interesting, 2.0, not 2.8. And is it huge?
I don't know how big it is.
Because that's always been the issue.
I don't think it didn't look too
big.
Is
it going to get, when you start going like 1.2, that lens is, a zoom lens is going to be huge.
Oh yeah, no, it's impossible. Yeah, but it didn't look too big. But my thought about it is that's kind of a strange focal length.
Yeah,
focal range. 24 to 35 is on a full frame sensor, it's wide to wide.
Wide to even wider.
Right, so it's like, I don't see how versatile that is. I need at least a 50 on a full frame sensor to start to get an interesting image. For me, I love being able to start to zoom in with longer lenses. I mean, I love an 85 on a crop sensor, you know what I mean? So that's...
Well, it gives you the depth of field drops as you get that longer lens and all. But there's a great look in video.
35 on a full frame is very pretty.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, but my thought about it is, at what point do you just decide to do prime lenses, get a 24 or a 35 or one of those lenses, and get a 1.4 so you get the extra stop of light, and a prime lens is generally sharper. But I'm curious to see how sharp this lens is.
That'll be the question.
Yeah.
It is an interesting focal length, though. And there must be something to get that 2.0. That's probably what...
Right, and obviously there's a ton of technology and engineering that goes behind it that's going to prevent you from exceeding that. So.
Yep. I thought this is interesting. Instagram has upped their image resolution. They've almost doubled their image resolution.
Revolution. A revolution in resolution. A resolution revolution. That's exciting.
It is, and really their goal is to attract more professional photographers, better imagery, a platform that is a more serious platform for sharing images. So
there's lots of photographers that have actually started their careers and actually are working tons now all over the world because of Instagram.
Yep.
So I love the format. I love the platform. I'm in love that they're upping the resolution.
That's a great step. It really is.
Speaking of social media, Facebook just made an announcement, I think yesterday for us, that it will now start to entertain the idea of paying pages for video plays. So you won't have ads that roll automatically before the video. It will be probably in between videos, between the one coming up next. So
interesting.
We need to figure out a little bit there, and they're not rolling it out to everyone. It's not available to everyone. It's just a select few people right now. But probably by the end of the year, it'll be available for pages like yours.
I mean, we have a lot of traffic on our Facebook page with regards to our videos.
Yeah.
We post, the last one we put up there had like 14,000 views on the Facebook page, which is significant. The problem with Facebook, though, in my mind as I look at the format, is that you go to Facebook to browse.
Yeah.
You go to Facebook to catch up with friends, to see pictures, and to browse around. You go to YouTube because you want to be educated. You're thinking, I want to look up things, I want to see videos. You go there to sit and to watch.
Yes.
And it's a little different, so I don't know, it'll be interesting to see if the mindset will shift on Facebook, and I hope it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really happy with the delivery.
I think the key here is you just gotta have like a 5-second teaser at the beginning of your video of kittens playing around different cameras, and that'll hook people, and then they'll want to watch to the end.
That's it.
That's what I do.
It's all about
if I'm on
kittens.
Facebook scrolling, and all of a sudden a video starts auto playing, and it just automatically starts, I'm like, oh, kittens.
Okay, moving on here. Moving on. Here's a great one. Nikon updates its 500mm f4 and 600mm f4 super telephoto lenses with new coatings, lighter components, and heftier prices.
Oh, heftier prices. I love that last part.
It's like $10,000
What an update.
to $12,000 for these lenses.
Okay,
Yeah.
but a 500 and 600.
And you need two.
I need two of them. Yeah, well, yeah. Think of all the cameras I have. I'm gonna outfit them. No, those are cool. Those are such specialty lenses. You know what I mean? But I mean, it'd be fun. It'd be fun for.
I mean, those are rental lenses, unless you're a sports photographer and you're on the sidelines of the Jets every week or something.
You're the National Geographic's first on call. You know, that's a pricey lens right there.
Yep. All right, moving on.
Okay.
I love this. Adobe has a new de-haze tool. Can recover incredible detail, and if you look at the tests on this, it really is absolutely fabulous.
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah,
it sounds great.
If you got a really blown out image, then using this tool will help to bring the image a lot of detail.
Or just
I don't know a lot about it.
Right?
I just
so like if you've got just lots of like marine layer in the morning, and you need to pull some of that contrast or detail back in. That sounds awesome. I love that.
So that's a new tool that's coming out.
Great.
So we have to talk about this, not from a political standpoint at all, but from a freedom of the press and a photographer or a videographer standpoint.
Of course.
When Hillary Clinton was out for the parade on the 4th of July, she puts a big rope up, her handlers, and literally corralled the photographer. Literally, like little kids in a preschool, corralled the photographers and pulled them away from her so that they couldn't, photographers, videographers, and reporters, so they couldn't ask questions. Now, I'm not making any statement about political affiliation, but from a freedom of the press, did I?
No, I'm just kidding. Not at all.
But from a freedom of the press standpoint, you have to have access to public figures. It's like,
especially those running for president.
Yeah, and let's say we're gonna keep you isolated. We're gonna put a little rope around you. Don't pass the rope. I'm going, why don't the guys just go, sorry.
I'm gonna come take your picture now.
Exactly. What, is the police gonna arrest me?
Yeah, just don't come out on the street anymore.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I think you have to have access. As soon as you isolate public figures to the point, especially political figures, where you can't have access to ask questions and to videotape them and to photograph them, that's really a detriment to our system. That is part of the process that keeps those people honest and keeps them, having to answer the tough questions. So anyway, so get rid of your little rope and let the photographers in. I'm sure she's listening.
Oh yes.
Hillary's a big fan of ours, actually.
Yeah. She posts all the time.
All the time. Yep.
Most of the comments come from Hillary.
Most
we call
of the
her
time.
Hill back at the headquarters.
Hill on the hill.
Hill on the hill. Hill on hill. Ah.
All right.
Hill.
Moving on. Hey, Adobe, this one kills
cool,
me.
Yeah.
Adobe launched their own stock agency.
Okay, talk to me about it.
This is bad news for those of us who are with Getty, and I am with Getty.
Okay.
Because Getty has been the most powerful stock engine in the industry now for years, and Adobe has got the inroad, the power to really put Getty out of business. And so for those of us who I've got contracts with Getty and images, this could be a bad thing.
Okay.
Great for those who are working in all those formats. You're in Photoshop, you're in Illustrator, all those places.
You just have a button that connects to 40 million images.
Exactly.
That's crazy to me.
You have your iCloud, you're paying your iCloud fee, which you say for an extra $30 a month or $20 a month, you have access to all this imagery. You know, I see in my mind where this could go that would be very, very difficult for.
You say 40 million images, and that's enough to find what you're looking for, I think.
You'd be surprised how many Getty has. I don't know how many Getty has.
I'm sure it's more than that.
Oh,
They've
way
been
more
around
than that.
for
way more than that.
Years and years and years.
Yep.
But no, it's a very, for people like me, I'm going, oh, cool.
Exactly.
You know, because you go to license a Getty image, and it's like, what's the use? Oh, well, it's like an online ad, and they're like, okay, well then it's $350 for one time, and I'm like, but it's like that kills the whole budget, or whatever. But
although they do have their royalty-free level at Getty, so you can buy things for just a one-time price, and that's still a very strong part of their market. But but I see what Adobe could do there could be an issue. So the one downfall here is they're not doing video; they're just doing imagery for now. So and that'll eventually change.
I foresee that changing very quickly.
Yeah,
in the next couple of years, you'll have access to just about that much video online as well.
Okay, there's been a lot of issues. There's been a couple of things that have happened recently.
Yeah.
When iTunes announced their new platform for music, which is more like Spotify.
Yeah.
They had this. We're gonna have 3 months where it's free for everyone, and then who's a musician?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift pulled and said, I'm gonna pull my stuff. How did that resolve itself?
Apple came back and said, okay, we're kidding. Well, because
exactly.
Apple said that they weren't going to pay the musicians
for that 3 months.
For that 3 months, which makes no sense at all.
So basically, Apple's saying, we're going to give everyone to this free. The musicians are going to give this to everyone for free.
And they strong-armed him.
Yeah.
And Taylor Swift, who's probably one of the stronger voices in music, probably the strongest in my opinion, worldwide, came and said, well, then I'm not going to give you permission to use my music.
Well, so here's the issue that comes up in the blogs with regards to Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She has these contracts for people who are at her events. So if you're going to be a photographer there taking pictures at her events, she makes you sign this contract. And it says, this one says, we could destroy your equipment if we choose to. So if you're taking a picture they don't want you to take, they can go as far as to not just take the media, but they can
smash your camera.
Grab and throw your camera on the floor.
Yes, I will sign this gleefully. Wow. Well,
so everyone gave her a lot of pushback, you know. So where are you at? If it's your music, and you aren't going to get paid, but if it's a photographer, you know, it's a whole different deal. I want to control everything, you know. So anyway, it's always that way, you know. It's whether it's you or the other person seems to have a different perspective. But all right, moving on. I don't have anything else.
All right, I feel pretty good about that.
Let's look at what's in JP's ugly bag really fast.
Okay, ugly canvas bag coming up.
Ugly canvas bag. I can't reach.
Uh-oh.
So, what's in JP's ugly canvas bag? I have 2 things in here.
Okay. Feels like you got a lot more than 2 things.
I have things in here that shouldn't be in here.
No, that's okay.
And these are pretty interesting.
Okay, let's talk about them.
Yep. Start with these guys. So these are Lav mics.
Stony-Edge?
Yep. It's a company that's basically making a less expensive, more affordable, achievable mic than basically what you get with a Rhodes mic that goes into your phone. This one goes into the phone.
Okay.
Yours, I think, goes right back to an external recorder.
Yeah, or a DSLR or something like that. So it's got a longer cable here. It's quite long, actually.
Now, I have not tested these yet. I can't, but they are probably half the price of what you get with a Rode mic. There's the first thing. Okay. We have in our ugly canvas bag a nicer looking pink bag. Lars was particularly attracted to this. And
you'd throw me under the bus on that one, man. I knew it.
Kelly Moore bag. You know, it has a nice arm strap.
It does.
Put your camera in there.
And you just have little kittens poking outside.
What's the kitten thing? And that's all we have in our ugly canvas bag today. And there goes Doctor Who's not police booth. Hi, this is JP and Lars, and we've got mail. Cheerio.
All right.
Let's read some comments. Mail from our listeners, things that they've commented on. There's one for Lars, there's one for JP. And we're going to answer your questions, and Bob's your uncle.
Okay, all right. Great. Well, let's get right to it. Carter Rodman said, I'm looking to purchase an LED light and softbox for filming interviews, which I'll pair with my 5-in-1 reflector and a kicker. Great, sounds good. Mm-hmm. This could also be interchangeable to put a strobe in for portrait photography. Can you recommend anything for a guy on a college budget? Willing to save up to purchase something that will last me, of course. Thanks. What do you think? Because we had a decent option for, with PhotoFlex, right? The North Star light.
The North Star light's a great LED light.
Right.
Not a strobe light, though.
No. So is there a hybrid?
There is a company, and all I can remember is I can't remember the name of the company. They make an LED 1K equivalent that has a flash head in it. But they're very expensive.
Yeah.
Not super expensive, but a college budget, it's going to be hard to purchase on a college budget. I don't know if there's a really good solution out there, LED and strobe. Now you can get some inexpensive soft boxes out there that you can then put an LED or a strobe in.
Yeah.
There's those options.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you had to buy an inexpensive LED, what would you buy right now?
Inexpensive, there's a Savage kit.
The Savage kit is very good.
It's got 2 LED lights with Bowens mount reflectors that come with the kit, couple stands. They're modifiable. You can put soft boxes on them, and it's like $580.
I haven't used them. Is the color very good? Or?
Color's okay. It's decent. You can correct in camera, especially if you got 2 of those lights and a 5-in-1, so all your color is consistent. Then you can do plus minus green a little bit, depending on the color. But for $580, it's like, how is this even possible for 2 lights, stands,
That's an incredible
reflectors?
setup.
It's crazy. So, I mean, if you're going for budget, then there's that option. If you want to get quality LED lights, there's more options out there for you. I like Light Panels, makes some really high quality stuff. There's
Well, the Roscoe, the new Roscoe line that's just coming out is fabulous. I mean,
punchy.
They're very punchy,
which is great.
And what punchy means is that there's enough power in it to give you a nice highlight. It's not going to be mushy. It's not, it's just a great light. And I think the Roscoe lights are really worth looking at.
Yeah, and like when it comes to lighting, like soft light is beautiful, and I use soft light mostly in my filmmaking. But I really can't stress enough the importance of having control.
Yes.
So there are some times where I'll want more power or output and a harder light source. But if you start with a soft source, then you're soft source all the way. You cannot shape it.
No option.
Right, and so, yeah. So I'm excited about these Roscoe lights. See how they work.
So anyway, you're going to need to get something like the Savage lights and some inexpensive strobe out there. For inexpensive strobes, what used to be the Photoflex strobe head was a pretty decent strobe head for the price. Yeah. There's a market, the White Lightnings are not bad strobes, if you're looking at inexpensive strobes.
The Baja from Dynalights.
I think, I was about to say, if you can step up just slightly, I would save my money and buy the Baja, because you have a very cost-effective entry point into the market at $600 that gives you a battery-operated portable monoblock all in one. Yeah. It's a great setup. And so anyway, going on.
Yeah.
This one kind of relates. This is from Black
Illusions.
Black Illusions. Would you recommend upgrading two studio strobes from speed lights for wedding use? I normally bounce, but on occasion I'm forced to do direct flash due to the height of the ceiling. What modifiers are used for bouncing with strobes? Great question. If I was shooting weddings, I would save my pennies and I would buy the B2 from
Dynalight?
No, from Profoto.
Oh.
It's a very small power supply with a nice head. Those are great. Those are a great setup for weddings. They're small. You can move them around with great power in that setup. That's just a great wedding setup. If I was doing weddings, that's what I would do. Speed lights are just too slow to recycle. You don't get enough strobes out of a battery life out of the batteries. I just think speed lights they fall short. As far as bouncing, Rogue makes some great bouncing equipment. They bounce pieces that'll bounce on the back of your camera, hook off from the hot shoe. There's several different things that Rogue makes, and they really make some great equipment, actually. We should bring some Rogue stuff and play around with bouncing light. That's something I should do as a lesson.
Absolutely.
It's really worth looking at what they do.
Yeah. How do you, though, because when I shoot weddings, it's all about mobility, right? So how do you figure out how to bring all that stuff and set it up and take the time to get those shots?
You've got to have an assistant. A lot of times for a wedding, like if you're at the reception or the dance part, you'll stick a strobe head up in the corner, and it's on a radio slave, and it doesn't matter where you're at, you're getting a rim light on everything. It goes off when you shoot, and that's a great way to start. So you set one up and use that, and then you use something on the camera just to open up the foreground, and you can work really easily that way. If you throw it on a tripod, then you let the ambient burn in, and you got the ambient of the lights and the movement of the people as a really pretty look, actually. So.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Peg Leg Media said, I'm only 10
Peg Leg Media. We love Peg Leg Media.
Yeah.
Arr.
Yeah. Always commenting.
Peg Leg Media, we talked about the new A7r II and in comparison to the Ursa in our beginning segment. So I hope we answered that question for you.
Right. And I think you were regarding the lesson we posted last month. And we shot the lesson, and then the very next day they announced it. So we just barely missed it.
We didn't have the A7r II out when we did our last trends. So
sorry about that. Cool.
Okay, I'll leave this one to you, Lars.
Okay, Robert Baird said, I personally like to consume the show through a podcast because I like to listen as I drive to work. Man, I like this guy, Robert. Robert, you're a good guy. Some aspects of the show rely on visuals. That's true, and that doesn't always translate well in a podcast. The question about shooting the room for a cooking show is a good example. It relies on being able to see what you guys are talking about in order to understand your reasoning for lighting placement. So great point, and I was thinking about that too. There are a lot of things that maybe we need to figure out on the podcast if we need to edit it a little bit more. But as far as shows I like to listen to lots of intellectual shows, not so much photography or cinematography based, but there's a couple of good ones for photography and cinematography out there. So I listen to the RC FX Guide, which is a couple of Australian guys, or maybe they're New Zealand.
Either way, the accents are great.
Yeah, the accents are great, and they're great. It's very much like our show, but it's just good information. And then American Cinematographer has a podcast, and they interview cinematographers. But my issue with it is that they're very rarely current cinematographers.
Oh.
It's like, let's talk about like a show that was shot back in the 70s.
I shot Gone with the Wind.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. It's like, let's talk about like The Color Purple, and you're like, what? Guy, nobody's thought about that movie in 20 years. It's like, why would
more than 20 years?
So it's that kind of stuff. But every once in a while, they'll have a current cinematographer talk about a movie that they just did, and that's very fascinating. But for me, I really want to hear how cinematographers are working with the old world mixed with the new. I want to hear, well, you shot digital on this film. Why? And how is that transition for you?
And light choices.
Choices.
What are we using? What's making the transition? Those kinds of things are really interesting.
Yeah.
So.
I'm shooting a film right now, and 90% of it is natural light, because it's just you've got this big window, and it's these cameras that see a lot with these sensors, and we're just letting it all come in.
This younger generation, it's like cameras light it for them.
Right.
Just point and shoot.
That's what
everybody's going to be a DP.
People think they like that, and I like it. So
it's a great look. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. It's a great look.
Okay.
All right, going on here. I prefer watching trends from the trenches on YouTube because it's funny seeing your facial expressions. Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Victor. All right. Learning how to feather softboxes. So this was from one of your lessons.
Taylor was. Does this principle work when shooting through umbrellas? They are the only modifiers I have at this moment. That absolutely does. Umbrella shoots out a same area of coverage. When you rotate that umbrella, you find the edge of that coverage. You can feather it off your subject. Use it just the same as a softbox.
Totally.
The only problem with an umbrella is you're throwing that light everywhere in the world, but you have some of that with a softbox as well.
Yeah.
So
Microware, does an octabox feather different than a rectangular box?
Octagon better. You know what? I should test that because I don't know the actual answer to that. Do you get a square? I don't believe so. I think it's going to bleed into a round pattern.
My only thought is because you've got corners, it would feather a little faster, right? Because you're not getting as much coverage, so the angle starts to lose it just a little bit more because you don't have as much light coming out of it.
That's something we should test. I'm not sure the actual answer to that. So but.
Okay, Tyler Green Photography. Would a better approach be to flag off the light instead of feathering it? Is it simpler and uses less gear, but you are losing a lot of light with this approach? Yeah, so I think, you nailed it. More gear and time.
Time. If you've got a box, you can just quickly tilt it up and away, you feathered it off the subject, you move on.
Right.
But if you're in the studio and you're going to shoot a bunch of portraits all day long, you may want to set a couple of flags so you have a little, that control as well. It's just a different way to control it.
A double scrim or something like that, but just move a box and you're done. It's easy.
I think feathering, though, just is an easy way to work. I actually like the softness of the edge of the box a little better than the middle if I really want soft light. So. Okay, Will is asking about the Ona Brixton bag review. I saw you insert a Sony A7, but how would a 5D with a 2470 attached fit in this bag? How tight would it feel, and will a MacBook fit with the camera inside? Hey. Well, funny you should ask that question.
Wait a second.
We just happen to have it right here. And if I open it up...
What's that?
It is a 5DS with a 24-105. I use this camera with my Tamron 2470 on the A7S and on the 5D Mark III, and it works perfect. Yeah, I mean, it's a great bag. I throw in there... I throw in the big old lens. I can't get it out there. I throw in the 15 to 30.
Wow. So, gives you a sense. I mean, this is a big lens.
Yeah, and you certainly could put in this other compartment, actually the 70 to 200. You could put a pretty good complement here.
Yeah.
So it works out great.
And a MacBook would fit.
And the MacBook would definitely fit.
Maybe.
Yep.
13-inch.
Yep.
Great. I will read this one. 63 Mac guy said, what was/is your walk-around camera?
I still carry the Mark III around.
Okay, mine's the A7S.
I don't have any confidence I can get images I can sell to Getty, and so I use the Mark III or the A7S.
Some of us walk around and don't think about selling images to Getty. And so we take the A7S. Also, some of us sell their 5D Mark III when they buy the A7S before it goes out of style. So maybe that's why I don't sell don't use my 5D Mark III anymore, because I don't have one anymore, JP. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry for staying current on my cameras.
Some of us change our cameras like we change our underwear.
Yeah, you should.
Some of us just get a great instrument and make great images.
Yeah, you should.
So I still use it, but you know what? I'm really seriously thinking about the A7r II as a walk-around camera with their 2470 f4 lens. Yeah. A great walk-around camera.
Yeah.
And now you've got a camera that you can use for stock. So that's probably in the future for me.
Yeah.
This is one from a past post, Simple Corporate Portraits.
I remember this one.
What is the small light to give a spotlight effect on the background? It was a grid. So it's basically just a reflector with a grid in it, and you can get a grid that's either 10, 20, 30, 40. And I can't remember what grid we were using on that. I think it was fairly narrow, like a 20. And it just gives you a nice 20-degree grid. It just gives you a nice pool of light on the background. And that depends on your distance from the background and how large it is or which one you use. So that's what it is. We have a great lesson called Using Grids. Did a little film noir shot. So check that out. It'd be something to be interesting to you. It helps you understand grids a little bit. So here's a comment from Yakim B. Hey, Mr. Morgan. Love the videos. I'm looking into a small studio setup with affordable mono lights. Any suggestion? Budget is about $200. $200 is a pretty tough entry point for strobes. You can get some cowboy stuff out there. You can get several things. It's not worth your money to spend on it. It just isn't. So you need to step up into something that is going to be a little more, going to be longer lasting for you. Westcott makes some great entry-level monoblock lights you should check into. It'd be worth checking out. I'd check out Westcott. You can also check out all the stuff like the White Lightning and the Ellen Chrome and that. Yeah. But it's going to be difficult to find a good light for $200. The B4 at $600, again, we've said is really a great price.
Chris Nigel said, hey there, can you recommend a battery-powered smoke machine? Thanks a bunch. Here's the problem. Smoke machines actually consume a lot of power. We're talking like 10 to 15 amps, so almost an entire circuit. So being able to find one, I don't even know of one that's battery-powered. What you can do, which I've done on some shoots where like power was an issue or maybe actual smoke was an issue, you can buy compressed diffusion, which isn't the best.
There's a thing called smoke in a can. You can get.
Right, exactly, and that's pretty much what this is. And so if you're worried about like, oh, we're going to be in a location, maybe a room doesn't have any power, or something like a warehouse, then you can look about that. I don't know of any other smoke machine that's battery powered.
No battery powered smoke machine out there that's going to be worth anything. It just isn't. It's going to be too low powered. Won't do it. Actually, I saw a great piece on f-stoppers where the photographer had done all their smoke effects with smoke bombs. So they just buy those little, 4th of July smoke bombs. They kick out a lot of smoke.
Not really.
Well,
it's like
a lot more than no smoke.
When it's done.
The image on f-stoppers looked really good.
Really?
Yeah, it was done well. Okay, next we have Rambir Nigar. It says, hi sir, I want to shoot diamond jewelry, and I have a 70D, 100 millimeter macro, an 18 to 50 millimeter, and an 18 to 50 millimeter lens, and one light tent.
But I do not get sharp photos. Please tell me what I should do.
Well, first thing I would ask you is, do you have this on a tripod? And also, if the lens is not great and you're wide open, it's not the sharpest place on your lens to be at wide open. So you might want to stop down just a little bit.
Yeah, usually 100 millimeter macro lenses, you're not going to get anything sharp until about 5.6.
Yep. So stop down to 5.6, get it on a tripod, and you're going to get a much sharper image. Yeah. And start with those things. And if you're hand holding it, you're never gonna make it happen. Yeah. It's too hard. So get it on a tripod, stop down a little bit, and it should solve the problem.
Yeah. All right. PZ Tiger said.
PZ, you're cool.
PZ is so cool. He said, do you have an insurance company to use to cover for lost, stolen, damaged camera gear on shoots? My homeowner's insurance does not cover. Thanks. Yes.
Great question.
Yes. Yeah, I do. So. And it's not expensive. Here's the thing: like if you're doing this, if you're making any money at all, if you have any money invested in gear, then just get insurance. Just do a Google search for small business insurance, and it will cover equipment. Mine covers, well, I up mine because I have Alexas and lenses and I rent those. So I cover up to $100,000 and then $2 million liability. And it's not terribly expensive, especially if you do like the standard. It's like $20,000 equipment coverage, and that should cover most of you guys. So, yeah.
Go to Tom Pickard out of Los Angeles. Tom Pickard is an agency that really tooled themselves for photographers, but then have moved into photographers who are doing some video. So they have a package that covers both those. They give you your liability insurance. They cover your cameras. Yeah. It's very turnkey. So it's called Tom Pickard out of Los Angeles. So we're here with Ken, and we're going to talk about the 5DS and the 5DS-R. He's got a little insight. We're going to talk about the difference between these two cameras and the anti-aliasing filter.
Well, that is the difference really between the two cameras.
That's it.
And they added another filter in front to
bypass,
neutralize the effect of what the anti-aliasing filter does.
So they in fact, it sharper, right?
It does make it sharper, but then you have a potential of jagged lines, things like that you get in the moire, artifacting, that can actually start to happen. So you have to post-process typically those images. Now you might get lucky, you might get the shot.
Explain what you mean by post-process those images.
You have to shoot raw files.
Yeah.
JPEGs are basically not really something you can shoot with this type of camera then. With the R, that is.
With the R.
With the S, you don't have a problem with shooting JPEGs. You can shoot JPEGs, you can shoot RAWs, RAW plus JPEG, however you'd like to shoot it. You just really have to...
The feature's still there.
The features are still there, but you really may get problems with those images. And it could be very subtle problems that, okay, so maybe you're not noticing it, on every image, but there will be images that you'll probably have that issue with.
So how do you make this decision? As a consumer, you're looking at these two cameras. There's $350 or around $300 more to purchase this one. So what makes you make that decision?
I would say, what are you shooting? If you're doing a lot of studio work, if you need to have a high resolution image itself all the time, you're not running and gunning, shooting around, doing all the different things, especially if you don't need to create JPEGs for any reason. This would be a great camera to work off of, the 5DS-R.
Why studio work?
Studio because you want to keep, for product photography, you want to keep a razor sharp image. But that comes with a cost, and that cost is glass. The biggest problem with both of these cameras, you have to have actually the best glass that you can work with. And we're talking like for Canon, all the prime lenses. Really no zoom lenses for this system.
Wow.
You can use their L zoom lenses and you'll get great images, but to ultimately get the best resolving power as possible, you need to use their best glass.
To get it as sharp as possible.
Even with their, they have their cinema line of lenses.
Yeah.
I would actually suggest using one of the cinema lenses for this, because those are designed for 4K shooting. So, manual focus, mind you, but
if you're in a studio,
it's a studio environment, you're controlling everything. Landscape photography, you're controlling the environment still with your focusing, so you really are not...
I swear by my ZE Zeiss lenses too, so I mean,
Great opportunity there too.
So you think that's a step up from your Canon primes, the ZE?
I would say it's a very equivalent lens. It has a different look, a different characteristics to it. I mean, the coatings are quite different,
color,
so you're going to get a different image out of it. But you might enjoy it physically. You might, it's something to try out. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
I enjoy them physically.
He does.
Hey, I mean, great imagery out of it. You rent them. Rent them out, see if you like them. They have the Otis lenses, which are, some of the best lenses that Zeiss even made. So it's like, hey.
85 is like the sharpest thing in the entire world.
What kind of a price point are we looking at with that?
$4,000.
About that.
$4,000.
I mean, but here again, you're using a camera that needs to have those resolving powers because it has such a small little pixel on it. Now, they also did sacrifice ISO. So to get that higher resolution, to get that higher power, the quality and characteristics, they had to sacrifice on the low light performance. So if you still need to have low light performance, the 5D, the original 5D III, is still the better choice of those. The 5DS-R and the 5DS, they weren't really pushed towards the video side either. They were designed more for the still photographer in mind. So the 5D Mark III is still designed for more of the video shooter. So, don't just go out and run out and dump your camera, obviously, but think before you actually make that purchase.
So this camera is built for the still photographer in mind. It almost completely disregards the videographer.
I don't say it's going to disregard.
I mean, they have the option.
When you take the audio monitoring out, that's disregard.
Yeah, and did they bypass the 1080p output on the HDMI as well?
That one I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
So I don't believe they did, but they may have, just because of, again, everything has, well, think of it. You got a 50 megapixel camera, it has to downsample all that information to get it to a 1080.
So yeah, it needs,
it has to process that out. So there's certain things that, you know, all right, how much processing level can you have in a camera to be able to do that too?
So what do you see, how do you see this camera stacking up with the new Sony that's going to come out that's a 40 megapixel camera?
With 4K internal recording.
With 4K internal recording.
Well, again, a head-to-head competition we're going here. I mean, Sony has a different byline for what they want to do and produce, meaning they're creating cameras that you buy actually multiple bodies for your lenses. Well, Canon, you could say, is doing the same thing. They've always been doing that. Not every solution camera body is going to do everything you want it to do. You know, and a lot of people are now asking me too, well, how does this stack up against now the Hasselblads and the Phase? Totally different aspect, totally different purpose, totally different
realm. Same size sensors, then we could talk, but yeah.
Exactly, different sensors, different resolution powers on the glass. Right. You know, it was that system designed for that type of shot. So they're doing an amazing job, giving you a lot more information to work with and play with, which is fantastic. But again, there are certain sacrifices involved.
Yeah, you know, I was kind of taking some pictures, and on the screen, there's going to be no difference at all between like the 5D Mark III on the screen.
Once you start zooming in, though,
right? Yeah, you might see.
There you got a big difference.
I would hope so,
because you're talking about almost twice the amount of information that you're actually capturing.
Yeah.
Actually, almost 4 times the information.
Right, no, of course.
I mean, really, the proof is in the pudding always, but it's dependent upon what your needs are. If you need a 50 megapixel camera, obviously this is going to be one of the few out there that is in a budget-friendly price point to do. Budget-friendly being, yes, still over like $3,000, but...
So we'll take a picture outside against the wall with this camera, with the
Just don't use him as a subject. Then.
Don't use me.
And we'll shoot a picture with the Mark III.
Mark III. Yeah.
All on the highest resolution, and we'll put all 3 of those up. Same picture, same lens. So we'll use a 50 millimeter on all 3 of them.
Great.
And we'll do it in RAW, and we won't mess with it in RAW. We'll output
just the same process.
Yeah. All right, so we took the 5DS-R and 5DS out, and
the Mark III.
And the Mark III. Yep, took all 3 of those out and took images. We used the same lens, same camera settings, same color settings on all 3 of them. So we're going to put those images up on the slantlens.com. You can take a little look at them. You can download them and just a little pixel peeking there and see what you think.
Yeah, we should try. We should on the video. We should zoom in 400%.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And just see if you see any difference. Because that's I think, obviously, is where we hope we see the biggest difference. Right there.
So we'll show you a little example here on the video, and also you can go to the Slanted Lens and download the images if you want, just to, you know, take a look at them and just see what you think. So here we are on our next segment of the Slanted Lens with What Does Ken Want to Talk About?
What do you want to talk about,
I wonder what Ken wants to talk about today.
No, I'm kidding. Filtration.
Filtration? Nice.
Filtration of light, filtration of cameras. I mean, one of the things is like people are doing a lot more video on their cameras, and they're shooting a lot of different types of environments, and they want to use a small little light source, or they should be using a small little light source as a fill light, but all of a sudden you start to try to white balance everything. What happens? It goes all wonky on you. You kind of try to go, well, I can fix the front light, but then the background goes all weird, or I can fix the background and the front light goes all weird. So,
well, you're talking about
how do we fix that?
And like in this situation right here, we've got an LED that's daylight, and we've got fluorescence overhead,
which always helps to have one of these.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
yes, it does.
So if we're doing this type of work all the time, we need to know exactly what our color temperature is of our space. So we want to take a reading out here, for instance.
4200.
No, it's gonna be lower than that. 30,
what do you think?
38.
Well, you split the difference between the two, you got it. So it's 4,000.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Which is
4,000
what we set our
cameras
cameras on was 4,000.
Right. So you set your cameras at 4,000, but you got your light source up here. What do you think that light is?
Blue.
Well, it's blue. So if we measure that one, at least I try to get as close as I can. You got 5,400 on the front light source, and I want to try to balance those two together. So what's the easier one to balance? That light.
Well, obviously the key light.
Because our key light. Because
60
I
of
can't
those.
rebalance all this light. So what I'm going to do is, somebody had me change this earlier here. This guy. So light balance filter, I can actually now use this is a Lee gel. They have it pre-programmed for Lee. You can also change it to Roscoe, so if you wanted to use Roscoe gels, that you can do too. But it says I want to use an L206, which is a quarter CTO.
Quarter CTO.
So if I use a quarter CTO, I can use one of these on that light source. Now I balance my front light to my whole room light, and now it will look more natural.
For those of you that don't know, CTO stands for color transfer or color transfer orange, or if you have CTB, it's color transfer blue.
So those are, yes, thank you for adding that in. That is one of the biggest things about trying to balance your light. Now I did bring you guys a gift.
Whoa, a gift from Ken?
Yes, it is actually the Lee Gel Filtration Mirrored Shift Calculator.
Drink more Ovaltine.
This one, okay, Kelvin temperature, as you may not or do know, is what we deal with on our scales. But if we try to calculate out the right color temperature correction on that scale, it doesn't translate correctly. So if we use a Kelvin temperature, like it says it shifts at 500 degrees Kelvin temperature, well, at 3200 degrees, it's not going to shift the same amount 500 as it would at 4000 Kelvin or at 5500 Kelvin. Right. So the mirrored shift values...
And that has to do with our vision, right? So our vision starts to peak or starts to plateau at a certain
It's because of the light transfer waves and how you're changing the light waves itself. So what they've done is they've come out with this mirrored shift value. And this is basically how you correctly control exactly what filtration you need to work with. There's a big calculation, take 1 million, divide it by the number, minus 1 million by... So it's really... This does it all for you.
Most of our viewers are sleeping now.
Well, exactly, which is why this chart helps immensely.
I'm sleeping now.
So you just pick literally the Kelvin temperature you're trying to match to the Kelvin temperature that you're trying to go for, and you draw a line between the two, and that gives you your value. So they've already put in here some of the certain filters, like we said, what, it was a 204? Well, so 204 is here.
If you're trying to match 3200 to 4000, you draw that line and you put a 206 on.
Correct. That's how you make that match. So it's already calculated into
This is actually pretty useful little. But this is set up for Lee filters, right?
It's set up for Lee.
Roscoe.
Roscoe has theirs. You can do Lee, so you can download it.
206 is going to be like an 8th CTO, right?
Right here. If you flip it over, now you've got 206 is a quarter CTO.
So quarter CTO, you're going to be only getting Lee or Roscoe, whoever makes filters.
Exactly.
Quarter CTO is just so standard.
So this actually helps you just quickly calculate it out. So if you know what you're doing and know what your temperature you're under, I mean, you guys were pretty much right on the button with what it was. But if you're under sodium vapor, well, which light do I need? It does tell you kind of the light sources on it too to pick from.
2400. Correct. But then you're going to have a huge green spike.
There's another part of the problem that's going to be a little bit more of an issue. That's color control on stuff. But I can kind of white balance then to that.
Exactly.
So I can still white balance it out and be on the right color temperature with that spike being kind of accommodated for.
Right. It's also a very interesting look if you want to keep it green. I love the look of sodium vapor lights.
That's become more, it used to be that was just like, oh, but now it's become cool. You have it in the background, you got the green look. And because it's
gritty.
You can't, it's gritty.
Cinematic.
It feels more like the world you live in. You're used to seeing that green.
Just don't get it. Okay. It's not me.
Curlers aren't big on it, I've heard that.
I guess not.
No, that's right.
Color's got to be correct. If you're
man.
Okay, so I have to have how many different filters though? That's the biggest thing. So there's a whole list of them. I mean, there's all sorts.
What I did?
What did you do?
I went on Craigslist and found a guy. He had one of those old art portfolio cases full of about 200 filters. He was an old gaffer out of the business. And they were all 2 by 3 foot sheets of filters. 200 of them, every single color in the spectrum.
So does this guy got more of them?
No, I bought them all.
See, that's my point. So this guy has this whole kit that he made.
Right.
Okay, I'm a Joe Blow that's trying to run around, and I'm going, okay, what do I need? Well, these packages actually will help significantly.
They do.
I mean, this is the CTO orange system, daylight to tungsten. This is daylight, or tungsten to daylight. This is a diffusion pack, because everybody keeps wanting to diffuse the light source. Sometimes it's too harsh. You want to soften it up.
Absolutely.
All three of these.
And this one is actually a colored pack. So if you wanted to actually just do different colors, this one actually is kind of cool with the fact that
it's not just red. You got a whole.
You've got blue, red, green, and actually there's a list on the back of these exactly what it comes with. And usually you get 2 of each, so you can actually figure out, okay, hey, I can use this, I can use that, I can warm it up. They also make a cosmetic pack. So if you wanted to add like a little bit of a warmth to the image for your subject, so you're shooting somebody that's doing an interview and you want to give them that rosy look, just to give them a little bit more warmth to their shot, you can add that for the skin tone specifically. So
Roscoe's got this whole set, and they do that. They have one for more fashion, look, more.
And I think Roscoe, of course they have the flimsy gels, but they also have like that set is it's a stiffer gel, isn't it? I
think it's still these same.
Okay.
Well, one of the things too, though, is they do come in larger sheet sizes, like 20 by 22s. So if you know the color that you're trying to go for, you can just buy a sheet of it instead of having to, pay $35 for a pack of these when you don't need all the other pieces. You can literally just buy the one sheet, cut it down to size, etc. That's the other thing. These are completely cuttable with like a scissors, etc. So you can cut them to size, fit them to whatever you want, and then put them onto your light source.
And they're flame retardant.
Flame retardant. So
important.
Well, if you're using LEDs, you won't have to worry hopefully about flames either.
Which is that whole flame resistant, flame retardant thing is going to be a thing of the past eventually here.
I know. Probably some of the viewers are going, what? Why?
Why?
Yeah, why would I need flame retardant?
Yeah.
Well, so these really do help in balancing your light scenario and your lighting situations, which you also can filtrate the cameras. Now, a lot of people are going, well, I don't really need to filtrate a camera ever because of white balancing and things like that. Well, that's true. There's a lot of we don't need to have those color filters anymore because of that. But there's still some purpose ones that we can't do in camera, like circular polarization or a polarization. You can't do that in post, you can't do that in the camera, you actually have to have a filter of it. Now what polarizers will do is it removes reflections of light, it gives you a little bit more saturation of color, and will also deepen the sky at a 90-degree angle from the sun.
It's just magic.
It can really do wonderful.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. When it works and you aren't expecting it.
When you're looking the right direction, it's amazing.
That's true.
Towards the sun, it doesn't work at all.
No, got to be 90 degrees away from where the sun is, and that's where you get the biggest effect.
Yeah.
So any landscape photographers, if you don't have a polarizer with you, I mean, you shouldn't probably be shooting a lot of landscapes.
Yeah.
There are some special effects filters, like some infrared ones. This is actually a newer one by Tiffin.
IR-ND?
It's actually an ND, but it allows all the IR light. It's designed specifically more for black and white shooting.
Series.
Yes.
We talked about these.
Okay, you
did.
A
series of these
so they just we just got them in stock. So we just got them. You're supposed to shoot like more of a black and white image. It really comes out better for that. UV protectors.
So why do people use UV protectors on their? You got an expensive piece of glass. You put a UV filter on the front of it.
What if you drop the lens? What happens?
If you drop the lens, you're going to break the glass.
You break the glass. So most of the time, this can help with impact a bit. It's not going to save it completely. It may not save it at all, but at least it was just an added protection of the front
end lens.
Also,
it helps a lot, like the scratches and things.
That's the bigger thing.
Yeah.
Cleaning a filter, going out onto the location, if you're at the beach, etc. You're at the, surf comes up and sprays the camera. Well, if it sprays the filter, I can always clean the filter or replace the filter
for $30
for anywhere from 30 to even 100.
30 is kind of low
because
these days for a good filter.
If you want to, and that's the thing, really look at the quality glass that you buy. A lot of times they use a pressed glass, which is basically just pressing a glass into a mold, or using pressure plates to basically press and create the glass. And that can sometimes cause striations within the glass, and also typically might have a tint of color to it. So you don't want any of that.
So
collimated glass.
Give us some good filter names of good filters.
B+W, Hoya, Heliopan, View is another one that's newer on the market for us.
These are better filters.
These are better filtration. Tiffin has a really good line of filters also, but they have the low line and they have a high line. They have a HT line out. It's called a high transmissive light or high transmissive filter, and they are fantastic. You're going to pay a little bit more of a premium, but think about the glass that you're using it on. If you're using it on like a Tokina or a Tamron that's like an extreme zoom lens, that's your all-purpose lens you're going to use outdoors and, you know, pretty much on your vacation, then no, maybe I don't need to invest in a $100 filter for it. But if I'm using a 51.2 from Canon and I want to keep that quality of that glass the best I can, I want to make an investment of $100 to $150 on that filter. That is something you want. You'll get a lot of people that also say, oh, I swear by not having any filters on my cameras. Leica is very notorious for saying, why would I put a piece of glass on the front of my perfect lens in the first place? Which is true. I mean, that is a very valid statement. But if I scratch that wonderful piece of glass in the front, I now have a $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 lens that I'm replacing.
Yep.
I'd rather replace that $150 filter than replacing that whole lens.
I took out the UV filter on the front of one of my lenses on a doorknob once. The camera's on my side. I didn't turn that fast, but it just hit just right where the doorknob smashed the front glass. So
but the lens was?
Lens was fine.
Fine. See, and that's where it comes down to.
I had to cut the filter off.
I didn't say it was going to be easy to get it off.
I had to cut it off.
Really?
Yeah.
They've come in like that, and a lot of times we can't get them off here. We have to send them to a repair facility to get them off because you have to be careful about the threads there too.
You mess up threads on the lens.
Right.
Neutral density would be the only other thing you really can't do. Neutral density, graduated neutral density. So that was the only other filter that you can't really do in camera per se. You can kind of pseudo do it by doing 2 exposures and then combining the 2 in post.
Yep.
So if you're doing video,
you're out of luck.
So neutral density is basically putting sunglasses in front of your lens so that you can get a desired aperture, right? And grad ND is if you have a bright sky but your subject's down below and you want to kind of fade into that sunglass look or a neutral density, then you can kind of fade that in. So.
What I hate is sometimes you'll see a film and you're going, okay.
Yeah.
You see the heavy neutral density or the color gradation in the top.
They don't use it very much anymore. I've been doing cinematography for 5 years now, and I have never ever in any of my rental packages included neutral density grad filters. Neutral density, just so you know, does increments of 3. So ND3 is 1 stop. ND6, 9, 1.2, 1.5, etc. So you know.
Some use a little bit different scale. They go with like 1.4.
Really?
Yeah, Tiffin I think did something like 0.2, 0.4, 0.6.
They did it.
Or
Did
something.
they do it anymore?
I don't know.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it didn't. So I think they might have changed it back. Filtrating your light is one of the biggest keys to just give you that extra little bit perfect look on your image. And it's not a difficult task to do. Even if you get it remotely close, you're going to actually improve your quality of your video. You're going to improve the quality of your stills. Anything that you're trying to match or balance in multi-lighting situations, this is definitely what you're going to want to start to do with your packages. So filtration of light, it's a very inexpensive way to get huge results. And that's the biggest thing about it too. Filtrating cameras, a lot of times, just a UV protector on the front or just getting a clear filter because there are UV blockers on the sensors already. So we don't have to really worry about UV protection. That was really more for, or cutting the UV light, was for film days. Mm-hmm. We haven't moved away from that. So a lot of things are still available as UV protectors. So don't worry if you get a clear, that's actually perfectly fine, but get them in multi-coatings.
Yeah,
multi-coated filters are a much higher quality filter. You'll have less refraction of light coming off the front and the back element. Remember, there's 2 sides of a piece of glass. Right. So it will refract light from the front and the back as it's going in. And the higher the quality of filter, the better the quality of the image you're going to retain.
Wonderful.
So there's Ken talking about filters. Filters on your cameras, filters on lights. Give you a little perspective on how to control color and protect your lens.
Thank you, Ken.
Yes, thank you
Or
very
just
much.
buy this, it tells you what you need to do.
No.
It does tell you what you need to do. And how much is that, Ken?
Well, this one sells at around $1,700. They do
$1,700.
$1,500 for the non-R, the Pocket Wizard version. So $1,500, and you're going to get the ability of not having to understand what you need to put on your cameras or your lenses, this will tell you everything about
tells
it.
you what to do.
Yep.
Right, I'm yawning. I wasn't up all night.
All right.
So this has been JP Morgan and
Lars Lindstrom, that's who I am.
That's who he is. And this has been Trends for the Trenches for the month of July. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Keep those cameras rolling. Keep on clicking. Don't forget to buy the t-shirt that we don't have. And the word of the day is Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle, which isn't a word. It's like a phrase.
So the phrase of the day is
Phrase of the day.
Bob's your uncle.
All right.
Which if you're from England, you'll understand what that means.
So here's what we need you to incorporate it in the comments. Bob's your uncle if you listen to it all the way through. But then, but also find a question that you want to ask us, and you have to use that phrase as well. So, good luck.
Bob's your uncle. Keep those cameras rolling. Keep on clicking. That should be exciting. Also, we're going to talk about the new Sony camera.
A7S.
A7S II.
A7R Mark II.
A7R.
Man, there's lots
A7R
of S's
Mark
and
II.
R's and 2s
Okay.
and 3s.